Vermont's most rural state in the Union. And as a consequence of that, the decisions you make will have a disproportionate effect on the state when it comes to its effect on the economics of rural communities in the state of Vermont. I've spoke to a number of you in Montpelier, and given only 90 seconds, I did it in a rather pithy fashion. But to take it out a step or two, I'm going to give you a bibliography of sources that I really want you to take a look at when before you report out a bill, because one of the things that you learn when you go through the Eric Clearinghouse on rural schools, and you go through some of the economic measures that are not back of the envelope measures, but real case studies of what happens to rural communities when consolidation occurs, and you learn a couple things. You learn that you don't save any money, because what happens is those towns depopulate, and you end up with centralized schools you have to expand. You actually have, and New York was a great example of this, and so is Pennsylvania, and so is Michigan, you actually increase the size of your bureaucracy relative to the number of teachers you have on staff. And more importantly, you kill the goose in the sense that when you look at rural communities where school consolidation happens, you see something very dramatic. And I pulled this from West Virginia, pulled this from Nebraska, Kansas, and the Dakotas. And what you see is prior to consolidation, you see what we see here in Vermont. You see a population that's slowly going down in terms of students, more or less stable in terms of population, an economic base that's not growing terribly fast compared to the urban areas, but it's hanging in there. Post-consolidation, you see population drops of 2 to 3% a year. You see the grand list in rural counties go down. This is even before our economic meltdown. You see them go down. You actually look at the states where this has taken place, and you find they're in worse financial crisis than Vermont is. It's not a coincidence. And I really beg you to take a look at this material before you go forward, because the consequences here are serious, and they extend well past education, and they really get to the economic heart and the character of the state of Vermont. And if you want the state of Vermont to be three cities, the Upper Valley, Chittenden County, maybe Rutland, then this is fine. If you want rural communities to stay alive, to stay vibrant, you need to think about what you're doing here, because you not only have the potential to kill them, but you have the potential to tear the heart out of the economic fabric of the state and actually make your situation worse. I can give you the example of Grafton, where I'm from. Grafton is a town that's struggling. It's 500 to 600 people. It's a tourist town, but there are a number of families who've moved into our community. However, they go to school because we have public limited school choice, something that's not in your bill. And half of our students go to Bellows Falls, about a third go to Green Mountain, which is in another county, and the rest go to Leland and Gray, and et cetera. Now, there's no place for that town in your bill. And I don't know what to do about it.
It's not our bill.
Not our bill.
Well, the point is, but the bill that I saw, the bill that you guys had, and it was even more of the same. The geographic reality of Vermont counties is that they don't fit population centers. I work for the Dartmouth Institute, which has a wonderful assessment of market areas in the state of Vermont. You really ought to take a look at it, because it'll show you how bad the disconnect is between the statutory borders that you're talking about and what exists currently. It doesn't work. Now, there are things we can do that will save more money and actually produce more valuable consolidation in the ways that count than what you're suggesting. For example, Bellows Falls Union High School has suggested to a number of the schools around that we could share AP programs, which is, next to special ed, the big cost center in terms of instruction. We could save, by my estimates, as much as a third of our AP costs and actually expand programs. We have our own, our district has its own personnel department, its own payroll department. That's stupid. Now, we'd be perfectly happy to share that with other districts. In fact, we'd be happy if you took it over, as far as I'm concerned. But the fact is, there's real net savings. We could save perhaps, again, another third out of back office expenses if you did those things. They have nothing to do with the approach that you're taking, which all it does is marginalize rural communities, eventually lead to the closing of rural schools in the name of cost savings, and generates that stampede of young parents and all the vitality we think is so important in Vermont out of the rural heartland of this state, and maybe to the small few urban centers we have, but probably mostly just out.
So I wanted to talk about it from a parent's perspective. I'm not a policy person, so I'm going to give it to you from my experience as a tax-paying parent with 2 Vermont high schoolers. As far as I can see right now, the consolidation plan, to me, appears to be a great way to stabilize budgets for school districts, but yet it does not seem to be looking at increasing and optimizing educational outcomes, okay? For me, the problem that I had in the Hartford High School District, I approached my principal. I went to the superintendent. I did tons of research. In fact, ended up on a conference call with the assistant to the superintendent, assistant to the commissioner and the civil rights attorney for the state, Department of Education, and they listened to my problem and they said, gee, yeah, you're right, this is really poor educational policy. And I'm thinking, wonderful, I've got somebody in the powerful, Department of Education who's agreeing with me this is policy that is harmful to my child. I said, great, will you please write a letter? They said, no, we won't do that. So here I am, I'm listening to all this about consolidating big districts, and I'm not seeing this as a way that is going to optimize a parent's ability to choose the best educational scenario for their child. And I think that's really, really important. I think, quite frankly, I'd like to say you should really think about total free school choice. Not every child matches every school, and the idea that one commissioner is going to make this district and you're going to be, confined to certain districts, whether your child fits that or not, seems to be silly. If it comes down to it, where I'm in a position where I have to move or whatever, I think it's a hard position to put parents and young families in, where if you don't like the school, you have to either leave the state, find a new home, and find a new job. In today's economy, that's a difficult proposition. So, I beg you to consider school choice and to be as flexible as possible. I think it is important to understand that different kids need different kinds of schools. Some of my neighbors' kids are doing very well in Hartford High, and I'm very happy for them. Wasn't the case for my kids, and I need the flexibility so that I can have kids who are successful. Because if we have kids that are successful in education, they're going to be successful adults.
Yeah, and move out eventually.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, these hearings are for opportunity and to give you our stories of what's important. And I'm really begging you to listen to the fact that, I need choice, and it's cost me out of pocket because I haven't been able to. I'm not in a sending district, and I decided it was worth the cost for my kid, for me to put down the money and send them to an independent school. You need that flexibility.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth.